Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the 6th Annual Interfaith Awareness Week. My name is Reverend Dr. Steve Albert, and I'm the director of the World Interfaith Network. Interfaith Awareness Week is a yearly, week-long celebration begun by the Poway Interfaith team in Poway, California. In 2017, Point, as it's known, has members throughout San Diego County, and we hosted a 5-day NAIN Connect conference in the San Diego area. We held it at the University of California in San Diego, and it attracted over 250 people from 20 different faiths. 77 speakers and presenters provided workshops, lectures, discussions, morning meditations, activities, which included bus trips to historic faith locations, concert in the park, and lots of food. While planning the conference, we contacted the mayors of the cities throughout San Diego County about creating that second week in August during the conference as Interfaith Awareness Week, and to do it in their city. And believe it or not, 14 city mayors and the San Diego County Board of Supervisors proclaimed Interfaith Awareness Week as a time in which we honor and respect all faiths, cultures, creeds, and races, and seek to learn from those who believe equal spiritual opportunity and human rights belong to all people. 1 year later, in 2018, the governor of the state of California proclaimed Interfaith Awareness Week as an annual state celebration. And then 1 year after that, in 2019, the United Religions Initiative asked if they could celebrate the second week in August with us. And their members are located in over 107 countries. Wow, so what we will be celebrating and participating in this coming week will truly be a global celebration. Well, that's the history of Interfaith Awareness Week. Now we need to move forward into this week's activities and introduce you to the over 40 interfaith groups which will be presenting prayers, music, dance, speaker panels, dialogues, and discussions from their area of the world. I know that you'll enjoy meeting new friends from different faith and cultural backgrounds and appreciate the mutual respect they all have for one another as we unite our interfaith partners globally. And each noontime, Monday through Friday, don't miss the 1-hour global talk zone. The talk zones is where you can meet and interact with interfaith people from all over the world and introduce the new programs that you're working on. Perhaps you'll learn new practices to help you develop the final product. You may even be invited to collaborate on a virtual event and even be on a panel elsewhere in the world. By joining forces with interfaith groups throughout the world, your events will become richer and attract more people. Oh, by the way, if you get hungry or need a cup of coffee or something to eat during, between, or after the many sessions, any hour of the day or night, you can visit our virtual Interfaith Awareness Week cafeteria. Whether you want coffee, a snack, a full breakfast, lunch, or dinner, link your computer's browser to the site shown and grab an IAW food tray. Then go back and select what you want to eat and drink, copy them one at a time and paste them into your tray. Make sure you save the tray for a souvenir. All virtual food is sugar-free, calorie-free, gluten-free, kosher, and halal. So come back anytime during the week 24/7. So now I'm going to turn the program over to the next presentation.
Hello, everyone. I'm just going to wait one more minute before we start today's event. So hold on tight and we'll just let everyone else that's joining in get settled in. Thank you. Okay, I think we have our everyone that's joining us today. So just want to say hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us for our webinar today on taking action on climate change and interfaith conversation. My name is Chini, and I am the Climate Change Sustainability Intern at Faith in the Common Good. I'm excited to let you know that this is FCG's first webinar of the year and is happening during World Interfaith Harmony Week. Before we begin, I have a few housekeeping notes. We'd love to hear from you, and my colleague Beatrice will be monitoring the chat this evening. So if you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into the chat window below on your screen. We'll address them during the Q&A session at the end. This webinar is being recorded and will be available to everyone when it's uploaded, and we will share it to you through an email along with the resources mentioned when it's uploaded. We will share it through email and yes, next slide, please. For those who are just joining us, welcome. We are gathered today to have a conversation on how different faith and environmental stewardship beliefs are influencing climate action. This conversation will include guest speakers, Rupert Sidhu from Ecoseq, Arij Riaz, manager at Enviro Muslims, Agnes from Mouvement Laudato Si Movement Canada, and Sabrina Malich, Director of Engagement at Shorish. After listening and learning what climate actions that are being taken within their faith communities, we will break out into smaller group discussions. This is an opportunity for you to join the conversation and share and reflect how your faith inspires you to take care of our common home and what climate actions you're taking. Again, if you have any specific questions for our guest speakers during the webinar, please type them into your chat box and we'll address them at the end of during the Q&A session. Lastly, before we do wrap up today, FCG will be sharing some climate action resources that you can start, including at your place of worship, community, and even at home. These resources are intended for everyone, from small actions to the bigger ones, but most importantly, we hope today's conversation inspires everyone to work together for the common good by taking collective climate action. I would now like to welcome Faith in the Common Good's Executive Director, Michelle Singh, to begin the webinar with a loud acknowledgement and introductions. Thank you.
Next slide, please. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. We are a collaboration of organizations from coast to coast to coast on the traditional ceded and unceded territories of diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. These nations live in a deep reciprocal relationship with not only the land and the waterways, but also with the physical and spiritual forces that connect them to their place of creation in an intimate and meaningful way. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live, work, and thrive together. We are also mindful of broken covenants and the need to work towards reconciliation on many levels. To learn more about whose traditional territory you are on, we invite you to visit www.native-land.ca. And if you would like to add a land acknowledgement in the chat, please do so. Next slide, please. Just very briefly going to introduce Faith of the Common Good. Most of you are probably aware that we are a national interfaith charitable network that's been working with faith and spiritual groups for over 21 years now, of all different backgrounds, taking collective action to create more sustainable communities. In a practical sense, we assist faith communities with both the educational and spiritual dimensions of greening, as well as the how-to side of audits, retrofits, and generally reducing a faith community's footprint. Next slide, please. One of the reasons we gather together today is because of World Interfaith Harmony Week. This is a UN resolution from 2010 that is celebrated the first week of February, has been celebrated since the first week of February since 2011. Since then, 3 Canadian cities have been recognized by the International World Interfaith Harmony Week body: Halifax, Toronto, and Calgary. It's an opportunity for people around the world of faith and of goodwill to come together and show what a powerful movement we are.
Thank you, Michelle. Next slide, please. So now let's jump right into today's webinar's purpose. This conversation is an invitation, a call to action, and an opportunity for our community to collectively join together to listen, learn, and most importantly, act together on climate change. Today, we will listen to speakers on the impact their faith communities are already having on environmental sustainability and their commitment to taking climate action for a healthy, just, and sustainable future. Today's conversation aims to educate and inspire individuals on taking individual and collective actions in their communities and to advocate for faith leadership to lead the way for climate action. Next slide, please. Today's conversation is inspired by one of the most successful resources that has motivated many to take climate action across the country, which is the Green World Poster and Study Guide. Gathered from many of the world's great religious texts, spiritual teachings, quotes chosen for the Green World Poster show that each religion and spiritual philosophy has a long-standing tradition of environmental stewardship. At FCG, when talking about interfaith collaboration, we use this Green World Poster as an opening for collaboration with diverse faith communities. The Green World is a simple way to connect people from different faiths, as it is a foundation that we can all build on together. Each quote on the Green World Poster helps us see the diversity and consistency of religious care for our environment. Today, we have invited 4 guest speakers that are representing a different faith on the Green World Poster to share with us how their religion is inspiring them to take climate action. At this time, I would like to welcome our first presenter, Rupert Sidhu from Ecoseq, to give a brief introduction of himself and his organization. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Great, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Janine. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. And certainly Ecoseq Canada is an independent, not-for-profit organization, charitable organization, operating across Canada. We actually have a global arm of Ecoseq, because we're basically a subsidiary, I guess you could say, of the global organization, but independently owned and operated, or operated. And Ecoseq as a 350 Guru sacred forests across the globe, mostly located in India, and the growth has been vast. It supports biodiversity and certainly habitat restoration, and it's for the environment. In Canada, we committed to 2022. We're actually at 23,000 plus trees planted now since our inception in 2019. Certainly slowed down by the pandemic, with the bulk of those being planted in 2019 in our inaugural year. We have a base of about 1,000 plus volunteers across the country, And we really operate in the philosophy of the Sikh religion. Although we're completely inclusive and we work with a number of different communities and partnerships, that's not only limited to Sikhs, but the values and the pillars of Sikhi really drive towards doing service to others. But also is within Sikhi is the relationship with the environment. Our motto with Ecoseq is certainly air is the guru, water the father, and earth is the great mother. Or in Punjabi, Pavan Guru, Pani Pita, Mata Tak Mahat. And what that really means is that, you know, our relationship is one with the environment, just like a mother gives birth to a child. There's an umbilical cord. You may cut the umbilical cord, but that bond still remains, and there's a two-way, you know, symbiotic relationship, or a relationship there that needs to exist. So you have to give that relationship love, nurturing, and continually devote time and effort to sustaining that. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what we do. Our website's ecoseq.ca, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for being here with us. Next, we would like to hear from Arij from Enviro Muslims. Next slide, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad to be part of the incredible discourse that's happening over the Interfaith Harmony Week. Thank you so much for everyone who's joined us today. I'm Arij. I'm a climate change professional who's working with Enviro Muslims as the Director of Climate Programs. Enviro Muslims is a community group that was organically formed and is run by a group of dynamic Muslim females. I wish you could meet all of them, but you only get to meet me today. They're a bunch of passionate, ambitious, and yeah, really bold females who got together and you know, formed the group and have been working on various different campaigns and projects. The main aim of Enviro Muslims is basically to educate, engage, and empower the diverse Canadian Muslim communities, so they're able to become environmental stewards as per the faith's teachings and beliefs. The engagement to date has ranged from delivering educational tools and resources to the Muslim community in Canada, as well as hosting different events, for instance, you know, in-person cleanups, plantation drives with city governments. And most of that engagement has been with diverse group of audience. So we've worked with children, we've worked with youth, especially Muslim student associations. We've also worked with imams and other mosque leadership and management, and also congregation members. And I look forward to telling you a bit more about the kind of work we do as we move forward.
Thank you, Arij, for that wonderful introduction. We will now hear from Agnes from Mouvement Laudato Si Movement Canada.
Hello, I'm Agnes Richard, and the Mouvement Laudato Si Movement Canada is relatively young. Until last year, we were known as the Global Catholic Climate Movement in Canada, and we are a chapter of an international movement. Our formation in Canada has been due to the wonderful support from Faith in the Common Good, but also through the support of the international movement. We work to bring Pope Francis' letter to the world, his encyclical Laudato Si on Care of Our Common Home, to greater understanding within our own Catholic community, but also in the greater society. So it's ongoing work. And as I said, we're young, but we've already established many connections nationally with others who are doing the same work, and we hope to improve that as we go forward. If I'm to understand correctly, Shanit, this is not where I'm answering the questions, is that correct?
Just a brief introduction for now. We'll get into that shortly. Thank you.
Okay, that's it then, thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Agnes. Next slide, please. So our last guest speaker was unfortunately not able to come. Sabrina is from Shorish. but she kindly recorded a message that she would like to share with us all later today in our conversation. But a brief overview of Shores. It's based in Toronto, and they lead and inspire and empower the Jewish community to be protectors of the earth, integrating awareness, action, and advocacy. Shores programs initiatives demonstrate that sustainability is a Jewish value and offer community members meaningful opportunities to be responsible stewards of the natural world. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, so now we will begin our main conversation for this evening. We have asked both our guest speakers and participants to take some time to reflect on two questions. We are now viewing the first one, and we would like us to share our responses today. So participants will have the opportunity to share later on. However, please use the chat function now to type in your responses while guest speakers speak. I would like to invite our first guest speaker, Rupert from Ecoseq, to begin this conversation. So Rupert, how does your faith or value inspire you to take care of our common home?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I touched on it at the beginning. Certainly, in Sikhi, we believe that everything is connected, and that human life is really sustained through our environment, and it's up to us to really prolong our time here by taking care of the environment. Everything's really interdependent upon each other. So that's really what our faith teaches. Going back to our Guru Granth Sahib Ji, which is our holy book, the first word in the entire thing is Ik, like Ik Onkar. It means God is one. God is one to everybody. God is the creator, timeless, infinite, creator of the entire universe. So that really tells us that, God is a creator of the universe. We should respect it as created, but also the very first word, going back to Ik, is such a very simple word meaning one, but it means so much, because one really is, the riddle behind everything is one creator created all of this. We're all connected by everything. Everyone's connected to that one. So when we talk about, what we're doing for the environment, we're really supporting creation, and that really drives it. And we talked about being our catchphrase. The next line is that day and night are the two nurses that protect us or take care of us. So I think that really spells out, our relationship with nature and the importance of it in all creation. Certainly, everything promotes the environment and creates a healthy ecosystem, a healthy world, definitely sustains life and creation on Earth. So that's something that we take to the core. And of course, through our amazing partnerships with folks in this conference, but also in the communities around Canada, different ethnic backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. We partner with everybody on different restoration projects, afforestation projects as well, just to basically promote that message and get involved. It really is a grassroots initiative that seeks really devoted to seva or service. We want to be in the front lines. We want to support. We want to help at that front line to make a difference. And I think the biggest situation right now is that if we don't work together as one humanity, which is what we believe in, everyone's one humanity, to solve humanity's biggest threat, then it can actually result in humanity fighting against each other. Uninhabitable lands, war over those lands, could result in famine, war over food. It could just destroy humanity. So I think it's going to take all of us working together to really drive that agenda and prolong our time here on Earth. So thank you.
Beautifully said, Ruth. Thank you for sharing that with us. I would like to now hear from Arij, your response to how do you align your faith or values?
There are three main sources of learning for us, for those that follow the Islamic beliefs. One is Quran, which is the holy book, which is, teachings from God. The second is Hadith, which is teachings from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, narrated through his disciples or his fellow scholars. And then the third is Sunnah, which is the practice or the actions that the Prophet took and has been recorded. There are like hundreds and thousands of learnings from these three that link to that kind of environmental stewardship values being brought for Muslims. But I'm just gonna give one example of each that have been the most inspirational for me, I guess. So in terms of Quran, which is the holy book, there are many verses that call out for Muslims to be Khalifa of the earth, which translates to being a guardian or being a steward. And then there are also instances of Mizan, which basically means creating a balance. So not being extravagant and not being wasteful. One of the verses that I really like is, do not seek to cause corruption in the earth, because that's Allah does not love the corruptors, and that makes us a whole lot of influence in the kind of way we treat earth and the way we treat nature. One of the hadiths, which is the words spoken or the teachings by the Prophet that I really like and follow is, whoever plants a tree and diligently looks after it until it matures and bears fruit is rewarded. And that's something that I've seen followed quite a lot in my community. Everyone believes that planting a tree is, it's going to give them some sort of benefit, because anyone who uses the food from it or uses the shade from the tree is bringing that kind of act of good deed for them. And then in terms of Sunnah, there are a lot of instances where Prophet Muhammad showed his love for nature, showed his love for animals, treated them with a lot of care and protection and respect, and that's something that we follow. I'm basically an immigrant. I was born and raised in Pakistan, which is in South Asia. It's a Muslim majority country. So religion there, even if you're not really religious, religion there is part and parcel of our society. It's part and parcel of our culture and of our values. And there are a lot of things that we grew up with, stuff happening around us that have kind of been inculcated into our personalities and into our nature or our personal characteristics. For instance, just going to share a few commonalities that were there between me and my college mates or university mates who had different culture or ethnicity backgrounds from the country, but because religion becomes part of the culture there or part of the society, there were some commonalities between our households. Like for instance, our grandmothers would always use like a jute bag or a big plastic basket. And they would never need to buy plastic bags, but if ever we did, those plastic bags would be reused, and each house would have like a drawer or a cupboard where there's going to be one big plastic bag with loads of smaller plastic bags dumped into all of them. Again, food waste was something like, it was a huge no for everyone. You can't waste food that's on your plate, but also you're going to use each and every part of the produce or meat that's being used in the house as much as possible. Also helping animals, even if those are animals that you don't own, but if you've come across an animal that needs some sort of protection or shade or food or water, you have to give it to them. It's just there. You have to do it. And then, as I mentioned, tree planting, it's something that people think it's going to provide them with recurring good deeds. As long as the tree stands there and its roots are in the ground, it's going to benefit a bird or an insect or a human. And so you're going to be blessed with it and you're going to get those rewards. And then scavengers were, it's still a pretty big part of our society, and probably a huge part of why a lot of our recyclables, or at least 90% of our recyclables, make back to the manufacturers or recycling companies. Yeah, that's basically my story.
Thank you for sharing your story with us, Arish. I appreciate hearing from you and how your faith inspires you to take care of our common home. Agnes, I would like to hear from you as well. How does your faith or value inspire you to take care of our common home?
Well, I based my reflection on the Christianity quote that shows up on the Green Rule poster. And that quote says, and it is Jesus speaking in the New Testament, "What is the kingdom of God like?" People are asking him this. "It is like a mustard seed that someone took and sowed in the garden. It grew and became a tree, and the birds of the air made nests in its branches." So I've already heard commonality between what Ruth has said and their efforts to plant trees, and what Arish has said in the teachings in the Quran and from the Prophet. There's a lot of synergy and a lot of similar messages. With this quote, I recall the times when Jesus compared the kingdom of God to a garden, how often he prayed in nature, how often his parables remind us that there's much to be learned from observing and taking care of the natural world. That's just the New Testament of the Christian Bible, but the Old Testament is also full of these teachings. The peoples learned our faith because of their understandings with the land. Those were used in the teachings of the prophets and Jesus. So in a more contemporary vein, Pope Francis, in his 2015 letter Laudato Si on care of our common home, wonderfully combines traditional Christian teaching with contemporary science and a deep, loving observation of our world today. Pope Francis acknowledges that in some ways Christianity has lost its way when it comes to our responsibility to care for the gift of our garden home. We should not respond with a spirit of domination, but with an understanding of mutual support to help all life flourish in a spirit of loving cooperation. We are called to imagine and to bring into being a society that cares for all living things, so that our combined praises of God's gifts once again sing out through the world. Pope Francis reminds us that every single living thing has value, has a spiritual contribution to our understanding of the world and their understanding of themselves. Creation is incredibly intertwined. Working, and this is the inspiration for the work that I do. So working together towards a safer, healthier world is also working towards realizing the kingdom of God here on earth. We desperately need in these days to counteract messages that selfishly put individual needs before the needs of everyone. Without turning our efforts to care for all, everyone will suffer. Together, we can plant many mustard seeds and watch with wonder as the Holy Spirit helps us grow them into beautiful trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Agnes, for sharing that with us. Next, we've now heard some scripts and texts from different religions. Now we're going to ask our guest speakers, how do you align your faith values or faith with climate action? So now we're going to go back to Ruth and see how what Ecoseq is doing across Canada.
Thank you so much. Just wanted to say, it's beautiful listening to everybody's background from different faiths and the motivation. To the earlier point, certainly a lot of synergies, and I don't think that's by coincidence at all. We certainly believe that everyone's equal. Humanity is humanity, one humanity. That's really one of the most important messages from Guru Nanak Dev Ji, who was the founder, or credited as being the founder of Sikhi. And his relationship with nature was extremely close. He used to meditate in nature, India, a lot of jungles, a lot of trees back then, a lot of deforestation since. But his relationship, and this is the biggest spiritual experience that he had was in water, where he had met with God, essentially, as the story goes. And it's through his teachings, that we really learned a lot and really implemented a lot into the program. His 550th birth anniversary marked a pretty significant year. 5 in Punjabi and in Sikhi is a pretty significant number. So the Guru Nanak 550 program was actually inspired by that birth anniversary and was our first program. Even though Ecoseq as a global organization was founded almost approximately 10 years ago, it's during this time, which was in 2019, that it really picked up steam and got a lot of global activity and global participation. You can see here, these are a few of our highlight events over the years. Certainly a number more, but these are just some of the ones that we did have. You can see tree planting events, different conservation partners. We've evolved during the pandemic as well, to work with TRCA, Toronto Region Conservation Authority, to do an adopt a seed program where people could plant seeds and then plant them like wildflower seeds, and then take those to a designated planting spot and plant them as well. We've done a number of different 550 events within the GTA region, but also in Surrey, BC, out in Saskatchewan, in Montreal, and the surrounding communities in Quebec. But we've also planted a number of Guru Nanak Dev Ji trees in Canada. One's actually at our Black Creek Pioneer Village, which is our inaugural planting, which has grown significantly over the time as well. But we've evolved during the pandemic. As you know, there's restrictions that you can't go and plant 5 or 50 trees and get 200 volunteers out there. So what we've done to kind of shift was obviously that program that I mentioned there, with the Adopt a Seed program. But we also talked to private landowners, whether they're Punjabi, Sikh, or just in the first community, and they would plant in honor of the program as well. Also residential tree planting. Governments and municipalities offer the opportunity for you to have a tree planted outside. So that was something that we took advantage of with our membership and our volunteers as well. Even just getting our hands dirty, grassroots initiatives like community park cleanups, shoreline cleanups. These are things that didn't require big groups, but we were able to really make a difference, and spend a couple days out there with a few buddies and really keep the distance going. You'll be surprised how much garbage you could pick up in the community, or how much cleanup you could do to a spot that's already so beautiful, and looks even more beautiful after you clean up. And certainly thinking outside the box a little bit, we have a few members of ours as well, and it's growing. Some of the conservatory programs, like the monarch butterflies, being able to travel along their migration to Mexico, and they needed stops on the way. So planting milkweeds and other nectar producing trees are actually part of a pretty big program to protect the endangered species of monarch butterfly. So monarchwatch.org, we've done work with them in terms of registering and having way stations on the way to on the migratory paths. And then obviously, just in the whole spirit of Seva and service, we've done a number of food drives where from just September till now, we've done over 1,000 meals for the needy, preparing and serving, with other partnership charities as well, Ripples of Kindness, just to make a difference, make an impact, and serve humanity. So those are just a few things that we've done over the past little while, but this year we're looking to expand. Stay tuned. There's going to be a lot of planning to come ahead, where we're in the application process for the 2 billion trees part. Billion trees with the World Economic Forum, a partner there, and certainly our mandate, planting 1 million trees worldwide from the Sikh community. So it's something that we're driving towards and looking to expand and really get a lot more participation, partnership, and action in 2022 and beyond.
That's amazing. If anyone wants to get involved in this tree planting initiative group, do they just visit the website?
Yeah, So we post all our events online. You can register, or you can email us, or even just pop up. We definitely take walk-ins to come support. It's always been a great showing. It's a lot of fun. So it's true what they say, the best things in life are free, right? You take your family out to do things. There's nothing more fun with my kids, to be honest with you, because you can take them to a movie, but it's just not the same as going out there and planting trees. It's just showing life. And when my son was born, actually, in Scarborough, there's a park right around the corner that we did one of our first tree plantings the day after he was born. So we go back there, he's 2 years old, and go see those trees. So you could actually mark certain anniversaries, memories and that with trees as well. So we certainly encourage participants from all different backgrounds, ethnicities, faiths. We don't just do things exclusively Sikh, because being Sikh is being a human, right? Being a learner of everything, being open-minded. So that's kind of our drive. And we're just joining all Canadians hand to hand in climate action. So on our site, to answer your question, things will be posted up there. We have a little bit of a delay in this year's events given the pandemic and the situation, but stay tuned. Things will get updated as we get confirmations.
Thank you, Ru.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Next, we will hear from Arij from Enviro Muslims, what actions they're taking.
Just want to echo Rube, what you were talking about in terms of trees and being able to connect with them. It was back in 2019. The very first event Enviro Muslims had was a tree plantation event with Sidhu and Mississauga for their tree plantation drive and for their target. And we planted the trees there. That was like a couple of months in that I had arrived in Canada, and we often go back to that park. And that seems to be, because I don't have any family here, so that seems to be like a pretty great route for me in Mississauga. So yeah, I can definitely connect with that. In terms of the work that Enviro Muslims has been doing, the two concepts that I talked about that Islamic teachings bring out. One is Khalifa, so being the guardian of the earth or being the steward of the environment and nature. And the other is Mizan, which is being following the middle path or being balanced in your approach. So the whole approach that Enviro Muslims has is to be able to provide resources or tools and events and any other kind of support that we can to Canadian Muslims. So they're able to become Khalifas, and they're able to follow the Mizan approach. They're able to be balanced in the way that they're consuming, in the way that they're producing, in the way that they're disposing of or managing their waste. In 2019, that's when Enviro Muslims was originated. We had in-person events, so we had cleanups, we had tree plantations, which were great ways to engage with young and older Muslim generations. And we also had clothing swaps and book swaps and stuff like that, which was really cool as well. But right after, obviously, the COVID pandemic started, and so we had to pivot quite a bit to remote or virtual digital type of campaigns and projects. So some of them you can see on the slide. There's a Green Ambassador program that we did, which was basically celebrating the amazing work that Muslims have been doing across Canada in the field of environment and sustainability. And the picture of the young guy that you see there, he's 6 years old, Muhammad. He's at every tree plantation drive in the area, and he spends his weekends going through forests and doing nature walks, and he does like a vlog as well. He knows so much about nature, and it's just amazing. So he's just one of the Green Ambassadors that we celebrated. We've worked with TD Parks people to have different kind of resources and events produced and organized that would help people engage a bit more with nature. And then we also launched a book club called People Planet Pages, which is basically meant to bring like-minded people together who want to learn through books or documentaries or news articles and want to learn about sustainability. So it's pretty much open. We have quite a lot of members in the book club, and a lot of them are primarily from Canada, but we also have people from Europe, from Asia, from United States. One of the things that People Planet Pages produced is that yellow poster that you can see, which is our Climate Our Stories. It's a digital book that was produced. It features 20 stories by youth that self-identify as either Indigenous people or racialized minority in Canada. And it's basically it was a safe space and an opportunity for them to share their climate stories with us, whether it was about their personal experience or something that they had observed, or even a piece of fiction that would help them channel their climate or eco anxieties, for that matter. So if you have time and you want to go check the book out, it's really inspiring. Right below our Climate Our Stories is our Eco Ramadan Challenge. So Ramadan is the month where Muslims fast from sunrise to sunset. It's a month where Muslims are meant to pray, but also explore themselves. And that self-exploration is meant to make them better Muslims. So it's an opportunity for them to become better stewards of the earth. It's an opportunity to be, better at balancing. And so it's an opportunity for each Muslim to be able to look into the kind of work that they're doing around sustainability in their houses, where they live, where they pray, where they play, where they work. So one of the things we did was an Eco Ramadan challenge, which was basically 30 days, 30 actions, one action per day, simple things that you can do at home, like, switching to a reusable straw, for instance, or switching off, light bulbs at night and stuff like that. But we had really great response, and since that was the first Ramadan during COVID pandemic, everyone was restricted. It was something nice for people to be able to do. This Ramadan, the last year in 2021, we had an SDGs campaign. So we engaged with Muslim sustainability or development experts, I should say, who've been working on sustainable development goals of United Nations and how that kind of features into the work that they're doing and what other people can learn from it. So that was really exciting as well. And then one big program that we're currently working on in partnership with Faith in the Common Good is Greening Canadian Mosques. So Greening Canadian Mosque is basically a program whereby the aim is to provide resources and tools and support to mosques across Canada so they can begin or they can advance their sustainability initiatives in their premises. And they're able to engage with their congregation on sustainability. The first phase of the program, we developed a toolkit, which was made by subject experts. And it features a lot of different things that they can, pretty much just take from there, like different templates and stuff as well. We're currently in the second phase of the program, which is funded by TD's Friends of the Environment grant and also Olive Tree Foundation. And what we're doing now is further engage the mosques and also educate the Muslim congregation communities and members on how they can, support sustainability and in their mosques, as well as take that action in their home and communities as well. We had a really exciting webinar last week where we looked at some of the success stories from across Canada, featuring mosques that have done pretty well in terms of sustainability and what their journey was like. In February, we're launching a problem-solving challenge for youth where they can find solutions or ideas for different sustainability issues in their neighborhood mosques. And then in March, we're going to be doing another webinar, which is going to look into how this upcoming Ramadan mosques can be a bit more climate conscious, and what are some of the initiatives they can take within their premises and with their congregation members to be a bit more sustainable.
Thank you, Arij. If anyone's interested in the Greening Canadian Mosque program or Our Climate, Our Stories, the links are in the chat. But next, we will hear from Agnes.
Hello again, everyone. I wanted to tell you about some of the projects that the Mouvement Laudato Si movement has undertaken in the last 2.5 years. So with the help of an advisory circle, the staff at Faith in the Common Good, the leadership of the International Laudato Si movement, and with hundreds of certified Canadian Laudato Si animators, we're working to bring Pope Francis Laudato Si on Care of Our Common Home to life in our own Catholic churches and also in Canadian society. Since the Canadian chapter was formed in 2019, we've hosted numerous educational webinars, and they can be viewed through Faith in the Common Good's YouTube channel. These have been designed to connect Catholic values around social justice to practical solutions to mitigate and adapt to climate change. In the past year, we've begun regional roundtables in British Columbia, the Prairie Provinces, Atlantic Canada, and most recently in Ontario. These are designed to support Laudato Si animators, and these animators are lay people who have taken it upon themselves to undergo the training offered by the International Laudato Si movement, but who find challenges when they look to their own communities or their own parishes at home to actually enact the things that they want to see happen in their own parishes. These roundtables help connect Laudato Si animators to each other to help them build community of people working on common goals. We share best practices and provide mutual encouragement and opportunities to pray together for creation. 6 or 7 years ago, a flurry of divestment activity took place among faith communities in Canada. There's been very little in the way of new faith-inspired divestment announcements in recent years. So when I say divestment, I'm talking about removing investments from fossil fuel producing companies. And there's a list internationally recognized as the top 200 most polluting companies in the world. These are the ones that I'm talking about when I talk about divestment. So in light of this fact, and that leadership from Rome is calling for commitments from Catholics everywhere to actively engage in an ecological conversion in all that we do, MLSM Canada has produced the Catholic Eco-Investment Accelerator initiative. For this project, we hosted 4 webinars last spring to reinvigorate the conversation around divestment from fossil fuels and reinvestment in an ecological economy. Those webinars too, 4 of them, are also available on the Faith in Common Goods website. And in order to bring this particular project to life, we had assistance financially from the Catherine Donnelly Foundation. So it was a great help that we were able to secure that grant. Those 4 webinars in the spring of last year were entitled Laying the Groundwork. This was connecting our faith to the science reality of climate change. The second one talked about shareholder engagement and the methods that can be employed by people with investments to encourage the companies they are invested in to do better in their responses to the environment, to clean up pollution. This was a webinar that looked at environmental, social, and governance factors when deciding how investments are made, so ESG considerations. Our third webinar looked at impact investing with a special focus on investing with Indigenous peoples. Canada is extremely fortunate to have very active Indigenous participation that's growing in our financial sector, with opportunities and invitations for us to partnership with Indigenous peoples. So we are encouraging not only ecological sensitivity with our investments, but also truth and reconciliation sensitivity. There is a very specific call to action, number 92 from the TRC, where we are asked to include and to raise up Indigenous participation in Canadian economy. Our fourth webinar was called Positive and Negative Asset Screens. So those are normal terms that have to do with investment, but we looked at them in a broader sense as well, because we looked at investing in a broader sense as a win-win situation. We attempted to illustrate many options to plan financial strategies that signal disapproval of polluting fossil fuel companies and an intention to propel our investment choices, a societal shift to clean energy, while also prioritizing people and planet. Investors no longer have to choose between social and ecological justice or stable investment returns. The two are now mutually supportive. Most recently, the conversations begun with those webinars last spring have been synthesized into the Catholic Eco Investment Accelerator Toolkit. We hope to refuel the conversation, and the pun is very much intended, by sharing new opportunities to network among investors with similar goals to support the environment, find new ways of looking at investments in the traditional market sense, but also in other ways that build community resilience, and by responding to a truly Canadian call to action, and that is incorporating truth and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples into our financial considerations. The toolkit guides users through a series of discussions to evaluate how their values are reflected in their investment policies, and make suggestions for converting those policies to ones that truly support people and the planet. While the toolkit was developed within the context of the Catholic faith, this is a rich resource that provides insights into Canadian energy sector investments, investment alternatives, uniquely Canadian opportunities to partner with Indigenous ecopreneurs, and much more. The toolkit in the judge section guides people through a series of questions to ask themselves and their organization, first of all, what their values are through a lens of caring for the planet. And secondly, then, how their values are translated into the way they use their money. We welcome and encourage anyone with Canadian investments to have a look at the toolkit, share it with others, and use it to assess how your faith-filled values on creation care align with how you make your financial decisions. So this is available through the Faith in the Common Good website, and I invite everyone to take a look. The insights provided here, while our institutional nature, can be used even on an individual nature, in an individual way. We all have, or many of us have, retirement savings. We can ask the same questions that are asked here when larger groups are considering institutional investments with our own personal investments in our own future and how our money is spent. So please, please have a look and share it with others. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Agnes. We have provided a link to both French and English version of the toolkit if you are wanting to check it out. Next, we will see Sabrina's recording that she, to the two questions, how she aligns her values to climate action. So we'll play that right now. Thank you. Well, thank you, Sabrina, for joining us today. welcome. We would like you to start off by answering 4 questions we have today for all our guest speakers. The first question is, how does your faith or values inspire you to take care of our common home?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Looking forward to gathering with everyone in person sometime soon. But for now, we are live from Zoom. Actually, we're not live. We're recording from Zoom. So I was born into the Jewish heritage, and our texts and traditions and holidays and rituals and culture are full of practices, laws, and texts that teach us how to care for the earth and actually command us to care for the earth. Some of these essential texts are often overlooked, but at Shoresh, which is the Jewish environmental organization that I work for in Toronto, we have been working very hard for 13 years to elevate these texts and traditions and remind our community that we're actually commanded to become Shomrei Adama, which are guardians of the earth. So there are many quotes and many texts, but I will share one today. And this one we just added to the Green Rule poster that I think will be shared at the conference. And it's from Kohelet Rabbah, which is also known as Ecclesiastics. And it says this: "Look at my works, how beautiful and praiseworthy they are. And all that I have created, it was for you that I created it. Pay attention that you do not corrupt and destroy my world. If you corrupt it, there is no one to repair it after you." And we see these themes come up throughout Jewish texts, where we're basically shown that on one hand, the world was created for us, and we have power to dominate nature. We have power to work the land, but we're also commanded to protect it. And in this passage in particular, it's like, if you ruin it, that's it. There's nobody left to fix it after you. And I feel like we're at this critical point in human history where we can actually see, like, wow, we're being so destructive that we could get to that point of no return, and there's not going to be anyone to fix it after us. We can't ask our grandchildren to fix a world that's unfixable. So this passage teaches us to appreciate the beauty and holiness of creation, and to acknowledge the gift of the earth, and to acknowledge that we have the power to either nurture or destroy this gift, and that we have a huge responsibility to become what we're commanded to in the Torah, to become as guardians of the earth, known in Hebrew as Shomrei Adama. So that's Shoresh's mission. Our mission is to lead, empower, and inspire our community to become Shomrei Adama, protectors of the earth. And we do that mostly through educational programs. But I often say, you can only protect what you love. So really our task is to inspire and empower our community to fall in love with the natural world so that they will protect it. So we do that through like amazing, fun programs that are rooted in Jewish teachings, but we also do weave in some of the critical environmental issues of the time. So one of our signature programs is around pollinators, and particularly bees. And we've created over 100 acres of pollinator habitat throughout the GTA. Most of it is at Bela Farm, which is our rural home in Hillsburg, Ontario. And the reason we focused on bees was because, well, they're very, very important they basically run the world. They pollinate most of the flowers that the rest of the ecosystem depends upon. They also pollinate most of the fruits and vegetables that humans like to eat. So they're considered a keystone species that basically hold ecosystems together. And without them, things would fall apart pretty quickly. Now, often people think about bees and they think about honeybees, but there's actually 20,000 species of bees in the world. And in Jewish tradition, we do have a particular affinity for honeybees because every year at our New Year, Rosh Hashanah, we dip apples in honey. Now the apples are pollinated by lots of different bees, but the honey is made by the honeybee, which is one of those 20,000 species. So this is a jar of our honey. It's almost done. As you can see, it's quite delicious, but it's called Bela's Bees Pure Honey, and it comes from our apiary at our farm. And it's quite delicious. And if we were in person, I would offer you some. But so this is it. And it shows a Jewish star with a bunch of bees coming together to work together, because that's the only way we can make sweet honey. And on the back, it says made by bees and harvested with gratitude by local Jewish beekeepers. And we do sell this on our shop if you want to taste it. It's quite delicious. But bees are just such a great example of where Jewish tradition meets environmental issues, because we need our honey and our apples for our rituals around Rosh Hashanah. And without bees, what would happen to those rituals? So that was a really good entry point for us to show the community that we're so dependent on the environment for everything, but in particular, from a Jewish perspective, we are dependent on, for example, bees just for this critical ritual. Furthermore, we have every week we celebrate the Sabbath, and we bring in that day of rest by lighting candles. So we also offer the community, we call the Sabbath Shabbat. So we also offer the community beeswax Shabbat candles. And then at Hanukkah, we have an example of our Hanukkah candles here. We offer beeswax Hanukkah candles. So every Jewish ritual has candles, and beeswax is truly the cleanest wax. So without the bees, again, we wouldn't be able to have those rituals. And yeah, so those are some examples. And then just, I think I want to close with, we're taught in the Torah as well that every creature has a purpose. And whether or not you like bees or you hate them, or you like spiders or you hate them, or you like humans or you hate them, every creature has a purpose, and we're not allowed to destroy those creatures because they're part of a creation that we are responsible for caring for. So yeah, that's the work we're doing. And we look forward to working with all of you to collectively help heal humanity's relationship to our beautiful earth.
Thank you, Sabrina, for sharing that with us today. I am inspired by the work you're doing at Shorish. I think it's inspiring to see how Jewish values are influencing the programs and everything that you guys are doing. So thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go on to the next slide. I just wanted to give a big thank you to all our guest speakers today for participating in this interfaith conversation. To Rupert, Arij, and Agnes, we all appreciate you being here, and Sabrina, so thank you so much. So next thing we're going to be doing today is the breakout room discussions. We have provided you with these two questions to discuss for about 8 to 9 minutes. And we invite people to share what they thought, to share their responses to these questions. So we're going to put everyone into breakout rooms for about 8 minutes. And when we come back, we'll just kind of share what we thought was insightful. I'll just wait for Elise, and once that's.
Thank you, everyone, for participating in our breakout rooms. Perhaps we can just stop sharing the slide for one moment. Yes, I see that it was a very short breakout room. We are running a little bit behind schedule this evening, so we had to shorten it, and there were some great conversations going on, I'm sure. We just have maybe 2 minutes. If there is anyone who would like to share an idea, a source of inspiration, really in 30 seconds or so, if you would raise your hand, and we'll try to spy you. You can use the reactions button and then click raise hand, and that has you show up much more quickly. or you can wave in the screen. Oh, I see we have Beatrice. Do you want to unmute Beatrice?
Sure, I can give a really quickly. I feel that our group really was amazed by the creation itself, and we talked about the interconnectedness, how we actually are. Someone mentioned that we're actually animals ourselves. We are part of the human, the kingdom, the creation, and as such, to look at ourselves in that way too, and to be really, we're commanded to take care of creation. So that interconnected with the marvel, sense of marvel, being outside in nature, really came as at the fore for this group.
Thank you, Beatrice. I was also very grateful for Walter, who shared with us that he is 92 years old and spent a lot of his life living on a farm, first in Alberta and then down east, and how that informed that experience has informed his life. Would anyone else like to share?
We have Gail.
Gail? Oh, Anne. Go ahead, Anne. Hand raised. I can't find Gail on the screen yet.
In listening to our presentations, our presenters today, I think I'm just amazed at the synergies and the common things that people are doing. And right from the beginning, the comment was made, we need to collaborate. We need to figure, to be able to combine this energy and these activities. And I think I'm sitting there saying, is there a forum that is multi-faith where all of these groups can be combining their energies to make a difference? Because I had no idea what the Sikh community was doing, the Muslim community, the Jewish community was doing. So this has been a fabulous forum for finding out what activities are going on out there and what sort of action has been animated. So yeah, this has been really, really educational and very inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anne. Please continue to follow Faith in the Common Good and all of our partners. It's extraordinary how much work is being done from an interfaith perspective. And there's another organization called Green Faith International that does a lot of work as well with faith communities. So I'm being told that Gail and Gloria, if we can find them on the screen to unmute.
I'm Gail.
Oh, there's Gail.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gail.
I'll just finish quickly that our group came up with childhood experiences on farms and in nature. And again, what someone else mentioned, the beauty of nature is astounding and beyond our comprehension in many ways. And personally, the last speaker talking about strengthening our work to be effective in our climate change circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we will have to move on. We do have a Q&A coming up.
Okay, just a quick thought.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gloria, there you are.
Yes, my laptop keeps freezing, so I think the breakout rooms are very valuable, and I think we need more sessions together to share ideas and activities. What I would say is that we were much aligned in our little group, and what I offered was that the trees teach us how connected everything is when you actually study the recent findings of how they're connected with the fungus and connected to each other and communicate, not just share share nutrients and water and sugar. And that my religious values are expressed by nature, especially the trees, and that I think a deep my love of nature was always there, but it is strengthened by knowing how nature works and how valuable it is to our mental and spiritual health. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. I'd like to hand it back to Shanique to share a little bit about our resources.
Thank you. I am just going to wait for our slides to come up, and then I'll talk a little bit about the resources that FCG offers that you can take away with you today and start applying them at home, at your place of worship, and your everyday life. So, and these are just some of the resources that we offer, and there's much more available on our website. And if you were inspired by the Green World poster and study guide, you're able to download it from our website and continue the conversation with family and friends at place of worship. We just wanted to highlight some of the few resources that we have. We have a couple of energy audit buildings, extreme weather toolkits, a guide to develop a green team if that interests you. There was a few people who love the nature and love trees and plants. So there's actually a native tree plant guide that you can actually take a look at. And we just wanted to highlight a few resources and that you may want to apply in your life. And in FCG, we believe any climate action, big or small, towards taking care of our environment are equally important. And these resources are intended for everyone, for people starting off or people who are already taking action. And we hope the guest speakers and the resources that were provided to you inspire you and encourage you to start taking action today. That's all for the resources. Next slide, please. And this is our Q&A session for tonight. If there's any outstanding questions, Beatrice, or you can raise your hand. We'll take any questions that way as well. Thank you.
Oh, hi there, Shanique. There was a question from one of the participants. It was going to be, it's for Roop.
Okay.
So basically, somebody was asking, what was the organization you, Roop, partnered with to help the monarchs?
Okay. Roop, are you still there with us?
And if he's not, then we'll be sure to get the response from him.
Let's see if I can send him a quick message. In the meantime, we'll take another question.
Someone, Anne Washington, asks, please give the Old Testament reference again. So I think that was, I believe, was that Agnes that mentioned the Old Testament reference?
No, it was the Jewish lady.
Oh, it was the Shorish. That's right. Okay.
You know, I can answer that partially. It's not from Ecclesiastics that that the reference comes, that quote comes from, but rather a commentary on it. It comes from the Talmud.
And when we send out the follow-up email to this event, that recording will be included. So you'll be able to listen to it again to get the reference.
Thank you. Thank you.
And yeah, that's actually a great, we could try and put in the links in the description. We'll put in some links as well. Any other questions for any of the participants? Oh, Janet raised her hand. So we have a question. Does the Green Rule poster include any indigenous faiths? Okay, so as many of you may know, we are actually going to be updating the Green Rule poster. So right now, Shanique, maybe you can give a little bit more about where we're at with that.
Actually, it does include an Indigenous quote, but as you know, there are many Indigenous nations. So it's meant to represent Indigenous communities. As Beatrice was just saying, we are in the process of, based on some additional feedback we've received from various faith groups, we are updating the Green Rule poster as well as the guide. And tonight we're inviting you to support us in doing that by making a donation to Faith in the Common Good. We hope to do that within the next few months, based on the unavailable funding.
That's right. And I'm going to put that donation link in the chat. Another question was, are you planning to have more sessions? We would love to have more sessions.
Yes, we have discussed that, and we will be sending out more information about that as well. And
We have a question.
Yeah, Marilyn and Janet have their hands up.
Okay, hi. I just wanted to say there was a question about the connection of the Ecoseq group to the monarchs, and it was the monarch butterflies. It's the www.monarchwatch.org. I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you so much, Marilyn.
You're welcome.
Hi, and I
Janet?
just have I have a question that's always been in my mind for Rupert and the others about planting trees, because I'm always wondering, how are the trees taken care of after they're planted to ensure that they actually grow and thrive, etc. And the other thing is, do you plant trees, like a variety of trees that might reflect the natural habitat of that particular forest?
And that question is directed to Rupert, but I don't think he's on the chat right now.
Okay. Anybody else planting trees?
Yeah, maybe Areej can respond to that.
I can definitely respond to that. The tree plantation drives that we do are usually with city government. One of the main reasons is because they have specialists who are aware of the species that are indigenous or native to that area. And also they have staff, I think they're called park rangers, but I may be wrong. That's something park. And they're able to take care of the trees in the parks where they're planted by us and our volunteers. The other plantation drives that we've done, which have been on private premises, are done again with experts who are able to provide us with the nursery plants that are native to that particular area. They can either bring those in, which has usually been the case, or when we go to purchase them, they're able to tell us and guide us to which ones we want. And then those wherever the private premises are, which is usually either a mosque or a community center, they have dedicated staff, which could be part of the green teams that they have, or just regular staff who are able to take care of, their dedicated garden or park space. However, we've seen most of the private premises work move more towards kitchen or community garden spaces, just so there's a lot more benefit that comes from it. There's a lot of community engagement element there. There's produce that they can then use in their kitchens or share with their community as well. So we've seen a lot of shift in those private tree plantation requests moving more towards community gardening.
Thank you. Because there are, I don't have the names right now, but there are a number of books right now being written about the interconnectedness of tree communities, and it's just really interesting to somehow be taking some of that into consideration.
Wonderful. We have a few more questions. I'm going to just quickly, we'll have to go.
Sorry, Beatrice, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
cut you off there. Rup is back to answer that question quickly before he
Okay.
Goes. Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Roop's here. Sorry, I'm playing a little bit of double duty. Today I have mandatory training on one computer, and I have this event as well on the my phone. So this one's the one I want to pay attention to more, but certainly wanted to answer the question. So I believe what was the question, Chini?
How are trees planted taken care of after they're planted?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the main thing to ask is, how did you partner to plant those trees? And that's why Ecoseq, what we do is we work with conservation authorities. Number one, we've had groups that had these initiatives and they chose to plant by themselves and to plant fruit trees, because the great intentions, birds will come, they'll eat the fruits, and life will be great. However, they're not native to those areas, so they won't necessarily survive. And they could also be have negative impacts, right, by becoming an invasive species or mixing the balance to the biodiversity or the ecosystem. So it's important, number one, to work with the partnerships with the regional conservation authorities, and whether they are contracted to do that, or whether you call them out to come support and help understand how to nurture and take care of those trees and which ones best would fit that environment. It's very important. Otherwise, you're basically could be doing the job out there for nothing and really waste that effort or that energy. And number two, like we work with these conservation authorities because they have a program where a lot of the planting, it's hard as a volunteer group to go back out to certain sites and monitor those trees on a regular basis because there's so many of them, 550 trees, going through each one, watering them and so forth, making sure that the soil is right, and that the wood chips and the mulch are not too high up, not too high down. But it's very important that you have the training for your planters before, so they know what they're doing. I've seen people put mulch in the hole and then put the plant in there, but that rots the roots. So it's important, number one, to have that education or that training or that advice from those conservation authorities. And then number two, taking care of them after. A lot of them require a lot of additional work, such as support and having them balanced and that sort of thing. But nature is a pretty interesting thing where if you have the right plants, the right trees in the right spot, they generally do pretty good. But you do have to go back because there's other things underneath mulch. Mice can come in, eat the roots. So you do have to have groups come back or the conservation authority go back and actually make sure that some of these more immature trees are getting the attention that they deserve. But sunlight, water, and natural conditions in the right environment for those plantings would naturally support growth.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Thank you. Yes,
Thank you.
very nice. Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you. We're almost at an end. So I know a few people have their hands up. So we still have to reach, we have to hear from Laura, Anne, and Donnelly. So I'm going to go really quickly with Laura's first question was, can you tell us more about what a Green and Sacred Spaces chapter might look like in a particular community? Collaboration among different faith communities to help each other take action. That was Laura's question, and maybe these questions can all be answered at the same time. Donnelly, so who'd like to take that first question? Can you tell us more about what a Green and Sacred Spaces chapter might look like?
In 30 seconds, it is, and Laura, I'm happy to have this conversation with you. We have chapters that are, for example, our newest chapter is Greening Sacred Spaces London, that operates under Climate Action London, and they're a collaboration of folks from diverse faith communities that have come together to do this type of work. The first chapter, our first GSS chapter, was in Ottawa. They have now grown into being their own not-for-profit and have programs that engage diverse faith communities all across Ottawa. And I'm happy to tell you more I'll put my email in the chat.
Perfect. So Donnelly and then Anne. So Donnelly, I wonder about the problems during the pandemic for faith groups regarding so much use of disposable items, such as masks or increased use of bottled water. Until will we need to wean ourselves away from disposable? So there's less of a question, more of observation. We can get back to that if we have time. But Anne, you've had your hand up for a bit, so feel free to. Well, I'll mute Anne. Can someone unmute Anne, please?
Anne, can you unmute, please?
Let's see.
She can't hear us.
Ask to unmute. Yeah, oh, there we go. No.
Okay, sorry.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah. Well, what this has brought very much to the fore is the power or the influence that faith communities can exercise if we all work together. So given that, I'm wondering if there is a way that we can in some way be guided, directed, or suggestions given as to particular issues that we can all focus upon that are of common interest. For example, particularly water and waste. Given now that there is one of the big companies, used to be Nestle's, I've forgotten their name now, is now been granted the permit again to take billions of gallons of water to put into plastic bottles. So I don't know whether all faith communities are allowed to become advocates. I know that the faith community which I belong is very active in this area. And I just wondered whether that was something that was being done by other faith communities as well.
Yes, there's actually a lot of activity with faith communities in Canada around water. There are the blue communities, which I think the Sisters of St. Joseph were the first blue community in Canada. There's Wellington Water Watchers who have been actively involved in what's happening with Nestle and the new name Triton, I think it is now. So we can also add some resources to the follow-up email that we send out. I just want to also acknowledge that we are past time, and I see that there are a couple of people who would still like to ask questions. So perhaps what I'll do is just take a moment to, first of all, thank our speakers, Agnes, Reed, and Rup, who, by the way, is no relation to Shanit. And also to thank Shanit for organizing this event. She's been an intern just for a few months with us, and I think has done a fabulous job. I also want to thank the support team of Beatrice and Elise, who has been taking care of tech and the slides in the background. And I especially want to thank all of you who attended this evening. This is only one conversation in many that I think we as Canadians need to continue having and continue engaging with. And I'm really very inspired and enriched by the fact that everyone took the time to come and attend this evening. And finally, I wanted to say that World Interfaith Harmony Week continues officially from February 1st to February 7th. But there are events happening throughout the month. And I'm going to put a couple of links in the chat where you can learn more about events that are happening in Canada and around the world. And there are other environmental organizations that are doing work around the world and having these kinds of events. And I think it's so important that people understand that faith communities or diverse faith communities are coming together and having significant impact. And there are lots of opportunities to attend events and explore that. So thank you all again for joining us this evening. If you would like to, we can stay on the line, let's say until 7:45. That's Toronto time. I'm in Toronto, and if there are any other questions that that anyone has, we'll be happy to answer them. I think Walter, you had your hand up. You have to unmute, Walter. Oh, unfortunately, it's not working. Unfortunately, that's not working. Does anyone else have a question?
Maybe Walter can type his question in the chat.
Anne, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to put this in the chat, but now you're on. As you all know, the authority of the conservation authorities has been severely restricted. I'm wondering, I know that in the Hamilton area that we are certainly very involved in this with Hamilton 350 and Environment Hamilton. Wondered if any of the other areas are having similar problems, and if so, what are they doing to do something to make sure that our conservation authorities do have the authority that can protect our natural world.
Oh, there's so many things going on here. In all honesty, Anne, I don't have a good response for that. That's not something we've been directly involved in, but perhaps I see that Sabrina has her hand raised. So maybe Sabrina has had some experience there. And
yeah, so thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I can really quickly offer an answer to that, as I have worked for conservation authorities for many years, as well as the Sisters of St. Joseph. And the funding restricted to conservation authorities is because they are a unique model to the province of Ontario. So we have in Canada, federal parks, provincial parks, municipal parks. The conservation authorities are a different body there that were empowered to caretake our watersheds. So it's a very unfortunate funding restriction that has been implemented. But it has not, as of yet, greatly impacted the authority that they were originally imbued with, which was to be caretakers of watershed areas. So your best activism for that would be to go to the Conservation Authorities Ontario page, the central page for that. But most faith groups, and this is something that I would leave to Michelle to answer, but most faith groups initiatives aren't affected by that same model of funding.
Thank you.
May I respond to that? May I respond?
30 seconds.
Okay, yeah, I understand the funding. It's not that. It's the ability that an appeal can be made to the provincial government and can overturn a permit that has been granted by the the conservation authority, such as has now happened with the wetlands on the headwaters of the Ancaster Creek that is going to the Ontario Land Tribunal. It has now been turned down by the Conservation Authority, and now we're having to gear up to try to see that that is maintained. But Mr. Ford, unfortunately, can turn that over if he so chooses. That's the part I was referring to, not the funding.
Okay, we have Walter who's managed to, he's unmuted, so maybe we can hear from Walter because he was trying to get his question in. Walter.
Go ahead, Walter. We can hear you now, Walter.
Oh, no. No, when I put my hand up, it was just to see what was going on behind me. At any rate, I think that this is a very interesting activity to have people from different faiths and different ideas and so forth coming together and talking. And the one value of coming out of the country where it's just one church, one religion coming into the city with such a variety of faiths and colors and ideas and so forth. So I go to a large metropolitan church, and they really are accepting of all people of all faith. And that's one of the values of living in the city.
Thank you so much, Walter. I am so delighted that you were able to join us this evening. Thank you. Agnes, I think you had a question or a comment?
No, I wanted to comment on Anne's comment, and Anne, you likely are already aware of this, but environmental defense has been taking legal exception to what the Ford government has been doing in Ontario. So I don't know if they're specifically running legal campaigns about water usage in particular, but certainly the ministerial zoning orders and other like restrictions and you know, on environmental protection in Ontario, environmental defense is working on. So if you weren't already connected with them, it might be worth looking into what their legal campaigns are doing.
And that actually just reminds me, Agnes, of eco-justice. I know they have a number of cases that they're working on right now. I don't remember specifically if this is one of them, but that's another resource you can check out, Anne. Thanks, everyone. This has been a truly brilliant evening. Thank you for your participation, for your engagement, for joining us, and we will be in touch with some follow-up information as promised, and we will let you know when the next one is scheduled. Have a great evening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care, Rupert.
Okay.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
See you from all over the place. Great. Okay, we'll call it quits.
Good night, Walter.
Good
Take
night.
care.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
We're down to our 6. Were we
No,
planning?
not quite yet.
Oh,
Okay.